My name is Yash Mehta, and I'm going to be presenting our group project part 2 for Marketing 366 Consumer Behavior. So we have the original and the manipulated ad, the original on the left with ingredients rain, and on the right with the color change to yellow and food with integrity. So our hypothesis was if Chipotle were to change the wording on their advertisement from ingredients rain to food with integrity, the company's slogan, then consumer motivation to purchase will rise. So the target audience and experiment before we get into the depths of it is this kid who loves Chipotle and it's his life. So quick attention grasper right there. So the first order of business was to define who the target audience should be. And it was, of course, it was millennials and Gen Z, which Chipotle resonates with the most. And second was defining the metrics. So in other words, strategically discerning if there's any biases in a particular region or other variables that may skew the data. And for experimentation and data collection, a survey in Qualtrics was created and was distributed to friends and family through various modes of communication, such as SMS and social media. And Instagram, where the most attention is yielded, allowed for in-depth analysis, granted that not everyone thinks the same or comes from the same part of the world. So the independent variable was the wording and the color change, as you saw. And the dependent variable is more purchases, increased engagement, and a greater brand recognition. So we predict that our manipulated ad will perform better from a marketing perspective in concordance to exemplary business strategies. So we believe that the more the consumer is exposed to the brand's CSR or corporate social responsibility and goals, the more trust and loyalty will result, evidently increase in sales and a better consumer base. So class concepts utilized, we have 2 slides for it. So the first 2, voluntary attention and luminance go in concordance to one another. So bigger and brighter text is more eye-catching. You're not going to miss it, and it allows words to pop. Class concepts continued. So target market selection, we already talked about. Appropriate promotions, product, and placement. Motivation, one of our tests. System 1 and 2 thinking, a question we asked, as you'll see in the next slide, how fast or slow engagement was. Habits of consumers, attitudes, utilitarian and value expressive, possibility of any attitude shifts if someone who doesn't necessarily buy from Chipotle sees the ad and they become more inclined to do so is another thing that we wanted to test. And heuristics, so biases, choice, and did our ad even matter? Was the original going to perform better in the long run? Of course, another thing we wanted to test. So 3 images we have are people in a crossroads between different sectors and trying to find out themselves. We have the sloth to represent slow engagement and the cheetah for fast engagement for system 1 and 2 thinking. Our Qualtrics survey is listed right towards the top of this slide. And the questions we asked in order appeared right after the survey taker saw the ad, one of the 2 ads. Is it easy to decipher what the product is? What is your opinion on the wording above the product itself? What is your opinion on the colors encompassed in the advertisement? How likely are you to buy the product based on the advertisement? How soon will you purchase, which is a leading question stemmed from the other? How effective was the advertisement based on the following parameters? There was a table in the survey spanning from extremely effective to not effective at all, and exceeding expectations as well. So exceeding expectation and not exceeding any expectations, very poor. And how would you rate the quality of the advertisement was the last question. So feel free to pause the video to look at all of the in-depth analysis of it. And opposed to putting graphs and visuals and explaining standard deviation, we came up with the idea that it's better to just display it in whole numbers, so it's better. So advertisement A is the ingredients rain, so the original got 9 responses, and our manipulated got 10. It was randomized, so we don't know who got what until we actually went into the nitty-gritty of it and found out. And just for sake, any number divided by 9 would be the numerator repeated. So consequently, you have numbers like 55, 33, 66, and so on. And of course, for 10 responses, it would just be the top number multiplied by 10. So you have 60, 50, 40, 50, 70. And again, if you need to pause the video, go right ahead, but there'll be an in-depth analysis of the data on the following slide. So in either case, it was clear what the product was. There was 100% in all 19 surveys of people knowing what the product is. So in comparing the data, wording did not have a clear winner. But the manipulated ad yielded better response because of the color, as we mentioned before, for the illuminance and voluntary attention. It popped, so you weren't able to miss it. Both ads displayed high attention and motivation, and all of them were at least equal for expectation, so about average. And despite the majority of responses for the original being average, it was the only one to have superior, as in one survey taker thought the ad was exceptional, and B, our manipulated did not get that. So that was something very interesting to integrate into this slide. So what can we infer? A manipulated advertisement did perform better than the original, but the results are not overwhelming. The only area where there was a huge stark difference was in capturing attention, where there was a mere 15% difference between the original and our manipulated. So we did much better in that regard. And of course, we're going to test that again to the more eye-catching, because easily the survey taker can just like glance at it because it came on the previous slide, look at it and be like, okay, I'm just going to answer the following questions, or I didn't know what the wording above was. So another thing we can test is the attention and how engaged the consumer or the survey taker was. And product placement is not an issue. It was in the middle, so there was no problem with that. So we recommend that the ad did overall do better from that perspective. So adding brighter colors, maybe larger text, easy to read, short message to the point is better for consumers overall. And displaying white is not as good as comparing yellow, but of course consumers are all different, so we can't come up with some clear cut formula on what exactly the ad should be. So that's just things to keep in mind overall for the firm, and any firm for that matter, in creating ads to get consumer attention. So potential issues in moving forward: aside from the ad, there are a lot of things that are wrong that aren't going to be addressed really, and that would be the political issues, such as there are vegans, so Chipotle is displaying like chicken, so meat product in their ad, and many non-vegan people would, of course, get negative results from that, but that's only the case if they don't know, like it's their first time going to Chipotle, which of course is justifiable. And Chipotle is now giving like this new cauliflower rice initiative. So if the consumer didn't know about that, then they would think that Chipotle is only selling meat products. So that's one thing to address from the firm perspective. And the ad's background is a little bit unrealistic. Of course, we mentioned before that you can see it. The placement is great, but there's a curtain and it's on a stool that doesn't go in cohesion with the brand. A much more effective way would have it in the store itself. So you're going to see what exactly you're going to get, because consumers want to see the less fancy version, because of course your expectations are going to be very low MAO. If you see this ad is like, oh, this thing looks great, but when you actually get it, it's kind of like a flat and like a blob. So that's something that can really have negative effects for the brand. So having in a realistic standpoint, so maybe having a consumer and the actual employee work on the bowl themselves and have like them smile would be much more effective and easy to understand what exactly is in the bowl, things of that nature. And that concludes our presentation. Thank you for watching.